Hi, Mercy.
Rita, how you doing?
Salama sana, how are you?
I'm good. It's always good to see you. It's like we always like doing these events together, yeah? Anything Team Victor.
Yeah.
Oh,
Usually I say talking is my hobby.
yeah, clearly I can see that. Yeah. I just wanted to grab a cup of water just before we start.
Yeah, even me, I can
Right back.
let me
Okay.
also get something. Okay.
I am.
Nimeingia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Just let me know if you can hear me.
Of course, we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Great. Yes. So you're 1 minute just before we start the session. I'd just like maybe to thank each one of you for joining the session today.
No, I can see.
Oh, thanks, James. Yeah, great. So I'd like us to, so welcome first of all to the session, the County Regulatory Toolkit that will be hosted by ASEC. And of course, we have a wonderful moderator who's just ready to unleash his wonderful knowledge and share the toolkit. But as we begin, I'd just like us to keep some ground rules. One is kindly remain on mute during the session. And if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to put them on the chat box, and definitely we'll get back to you. And then the second one is also be very interactive. We have reactions, we have the chat box, so please feel free to use them throughout the session. And then also we'll also be recording this session. So the fact that you're all in is that we're going to actually broadcast this session on YouTube, just for the betterment of other people who might need to watch it, or also perhaps even rewatch it. Great. So I'd like us to start, and I just wanted to give a small introduction of who ASEC is and what we do, and actually why we're here today. Can you let me know if you can see my screen?
Yeah.
Wonderful, great. So who's ASEC? ASEC stands for the Association of Startup and SME Enablers of Kenya. We are a membership-based organization that brings together and represents the interests of entrepreneur support organizations, which we tag as ESO, to support the development and growth of startups and SMEs for maximum impact. So we understand in the entire value chain of the entrepreneurship ecosystem that the enablers, the ones who do the incubation, acceleration, provide co-working spaces, do training, access to investors, they are the ones who really are supporting the entrepreneurs with access to those services. And ASEC really comes in that place just to support them and actually increase their capacity to support entrepreneurs. So as ASEC, we really are the voice of the startup ecosystem, and we do that in 5 ways. One is on policy. So we do drive the policy agenda for members within our association, and that's linking up with government, development partners, and investors, just to develop a rigorous ecosystem standards and guidelines to ensure that also there's a conducive environment for the startups and SMEs to thrive. The second one is on capacity. So we do understand that there are gaps within our membership and also other enablers across Kenya. And what we do is that we do provide capacity building training and also professional development to just support them as they support entrepreneurs. Mudhoni, can you kindly help me mute the ones who are? Yes, thank you. The third one is on empowerment. So we actively scout for and where necessary facilitate member access to opportunities through different collaborations and partnerships. We also believe that it's not important just to economically empower our members, but also we want to see how we can also help them uplift the livelihoods of the people that they do support. The fourth one is on collaboration. So we ease the sharing of information, knowledge, and best practices between members and forge close linkages between them and other stakeholders. And even having this session today is actually a collaboration with one of our members, which is BIFA Consult, who's actually going to take us through the startup toolkit. Sorry, the regulatory toolkit. The fifth one is on internationalization. So we promote and position the Kenyan entrepreneurial ecosystem internationally by creating visibility on the key innovation and startup ecosystem indicators, at the same time increasing public awareness of what Kenya is doing to the global market, and also inviting international players to come in and also collaborate with the local partners for the betterment of the ecosystem. So in terms of our members, we have 50 members across Kenya, and we are growing. And these are the different incubators, accelerators, people who provide co-working spaces, people who provide linkages to investors, and they're all under our membership. And all these people do provide critical services to the SMEs. In terms of partnerships, we also have a diverse range of partnerships, ranging from the government parastatals. We also have development partners. We also have associations, and also we have even media partners, just to ensure that we are all driving the same ecosystem agenda. So in terms of the impact projects that we've done so far, one of them is on the Innovation Ecosystem Code of Conduct. And here we actually held 4 regional workshops across Kenya, and just to gather the feedback from our members on what actually does a fair and equitable, ecosystem look like. And from there, we were able to gather the feedback and the insights, and we're actually able to develop the code of conduct, which we will be operationalizing this coming year. And you should definitely look out for that, because it does touch on what are some of the things we talk about on shared values, and even how do we hold fair and equitable ecosystem and stakeholder engagements. So for example, if you're a startup, how do you effectively engage with an incubator or an accelerator? If you're an investor, how do you engage with a startup? If you're an enabler, how then do you also engage with government? So looking at the different ecosystem players, and then now creating that equitable framework that can ensure fair play, at the same time collaboration to support the development of the startups and SMEs. The second one is on We Do Africa, which is touching on the diaspora remittance program. So ASEC is implementing the We Do Africa program, and we're working with 4 of our members, actually currently 3. So what they do is that they actually support entrepreneurs on the ground with access to training and then also coaching. And that has also helped to raise investment from Kenyans living in the diaspora, who now de-risk the investment of their local entrepreneur living in Kenya. And then now GSZ is actually able to provide a matching grant to support that. And with that project, we've been able to see that we've been able to support 100 entrepreneurs who have been able to unlock 140,000 euros in terms of financing. And then also we've seen that some of them have actually been able to unlock further investment in terms of debt and even grants from other programs. And also the fact that we are also scaling the program to include more entrepreneurs to be able to be supported through this. And this just validates the purpose and the importance of actually going through an incubation and acceleration program to ensure that your business as an entrepreneur has longevity, at the same time also a sustainable business model. The third one is on the Enhancing Ict Infrastructure, and this was done through the ICT Norway financing. And the idea was to create a linkage between academia and innovation hubs, because we do understand that academia has a lot of knowledge in terms of research and insights. So how can an innovation hub actually tap into those insights and actually create more programs that are relevant for SMEs? At the same time, also we did capacity building workshops for entrepreneurs across Kenya. And then also we held over 10 engagement forums and focus group discussions with our entrepreneurs and startups, just to ensure that also we understand the needs that are emerging from the ground. The other thing that also is still yet to be done is establishing a coding group for girls, where now we are also able to upskill them in terms of IT skills. The other one that I like to talk about is the startup bill. So with the startup bill, ASEC and alongside other partners, we've been able to champion for the startup bill, which is creating a more conducive framework for where startups and innovations can thrive. The final one is on the ESO digitization project. It's a 10-month project looking at how do we digitize our members. So looking at how do we build startups post-COVID-19 pandemic by building the resilience through investing in their digital capability. So some of the key areas of the project, and we are going to be reaching out to different stakeholders as we begin rolling out this project, is mapping out the Kenyan ESO, which is the entrepreneur support organizations, looking at their needs and their gaps as they plan to start, run, and manage a sustainable innovation hub. The second one is rolling out capacity building workshops and masterclasses to close those identified gaps and challenges. The third one is supporting in their digitization of their processes to ensure that they can increase their growth and impact. And the fourth one is developing a knowledge base for the best practices in digitization that other ESOs outside of the ASEC network can actually implement. So with this is really more of an ecosystem project where we'll really try and enhance the the capability of any innovation hub in Kenya by actually providing those standardized tools and templates and even the capacity building support to ensure that they are delivering on that. So call to action for this one is we'll definitely reach out again to you. And thank you so much for joining us today. For those who've joined us just at the moment, we'll be hosting different validation workshops and stakeholder engagements, and would also love you to be part of that. So we go to the reason why we're here today. So the County Regulatory Toolkit session, it's looking at there's the launch of the County Regulatory Toolkit that happened in February, and the session really is about unpacking what the toolkit involves. Last year, they actually launched the National Regulatory Toolkit. That was a more broader overview, but now with the support of Victor, and actually Victor will walk us through the entire session. It's now looking at how can a business actually scale across different counties? What does the compliance look like in terms of licenses, the licensing cost, the compliance measures, and even the processes, and even what are some of the investment opportunities that are available in those counties? If you're an entrepreneur or an innovation hub or even any other stakeholder, this is a very important session as you're actually able to understand what the government of Kenya is doing to really continue providing a conducive environment. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Victor Agola to take the stage.
Thank you very much, Marcy, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor Otieno. I run a company called Vifa Consult, which is an SME and startup research and consultancy. Majorly our focus around research is the first level is looking at research that is able to allow ESOs to operate better in terms of how they interact with startups and SME. Of course, this has to be based on data, and data and research is able to help or ensure that your intervention towards SMEs and startups resonates with them. So whether it's a capacity building program or any other intervention that any other ESO, be it government, CSOs, etc., is able to use and rely and leverage on data to be able to have better interactions with startups and SMEs. We also do quite a bit of research around policy. Again, just doing research within both startup and SME ecosystem, and trying to percolate this information to policy organs or players who are within the policy space to ensure that intervention at a government level, national level, county level, resonates with startups and SMEs who generally are entrepreneurs. Just to start us off, thank you, Marcy, for the presentation. It's always good to just hear what is happening at ASEC at the secretariat level. So we were fortunate enough, or we are currently fortunate enough and privileged to have been the implementing partner for building the regulatory toolkit. The project is a Ministry of ESC and Regional Development project supported by UK Tech Hub, and specifically within the ministry, the department that is spearheading this conversation is the Department of Business Reforms and Transformation. And the idea around this was just trying to build on the foundation of the broader reform that government has been have been pushing to in the Kenyan ecosystem over the last decade or so. And the regulatory toolkit is part of the broader strategy that the ministry has in terms of building a conducive business environment in Kenya. So the presentation, of course, will be broken into this a number of stages. One is just looking at the reason as to why the different partners decided to go with developing a toolkit. We'll briefly look at the first phase, or what we are calling the National Regulatory Toolkit, which we launched last year and has been quite successful. We'll look at the County Regulatory Toolkit, which we were able to launch in February. I'll take you through a live demonstration of the actual toolkit, because once it was launched, actually it's live. We'll look at the validation process that we went through, as well as the recommendations that we received as we were developing this particular toolkit. Sorry, it's hanging a bit here. So in terms of the reason as to why we developed the toolkit, it's based on certain challenges that currently are faced by entrepreneurs, who are mostly represented by small, medium enterprises. Of course, now with startups being also within that fold. So we currently know that we have around 7.4 million small businesses in Kenya. A majority of them, of course, being informal, around over 74%. We know that small businesses or even businesses generally have a very high mortality rate. What that means is a business starts, but it closes quite early. Based, and of course, what underpins this death or mortality is challenges that they face. So, of course, there are two kinds of challenges. There are what we call systematic challenges that are beyond the control of the entrepreneur, and we have systematic challenges as well as unsystematic challenges. So there are challenges that the entrepreneur can be able to solve within their sphere of influence. Issues around capacity building, they can be able to join an incubator or just be affiliated with an ESO that can be able to support. But there are issues that are more higher up in terms of the business environment that contributes towards their death. So we currently have around 3 out of 5 businesses closing. If you look at KNBS report on MSME 2016, we see that there are several reasons that lead to the closure of businesses. Of course, there are many of them. The challenges that businesses face is quite a number, and of course, different stakeholders are trying to address some of the challenges that businesses face. So, of course, an organization such as ASEC, together with the different ESOs, is of course geared towards supporting entrepreneurship and supporting the different entrepreneurs, be it startups or SMEs. So this can come in form of capacity building or whichever. So the different players are doing different things. But the focus here was really on the issue around legal problems or regulatory challenges. That was highlighted based on that report as being one of the main issues that is affecting the livelihood or the life cycle of small businesses. So in terms of even challenges that that is preventing an entrepreneur or a business or small business or startup from growing, we see the issue around license also featuring. Of course, there are many challenges, but these two challenges, we just wanted to identify the challenge that the regulatory toolkit wanted to solve. So this gives us some theoretical evidence as to why we decided to go to solve on the issue of regulation. So of course, even when we talk about regulation, it's quite broad. The specific issue that we wanted to tackle, and again, this is based on needs assessment, was the information asymmetry of regulation. So for instance, you want to start a salon, you want to start a butchery, or you are a tech startup, you want to venture into, you found a way of converting water hyacinth from Lake Victoria to biogas. So how do you go about registering your business and just setting up your business based on the particular sector you are in, as well as the county that you're located in? So what you realize currently is that information is scattered. So you have to go from one website to another, go through business registration services. At least that's automated. You have to go for go to your county, look for certain licenses that pertain to your business. But what is common between factors that lead to closure, as well as factors that impede growth of SMEs, we see that the issue of regulation features very prominently. And of course, even as we developed this, we were cognizant of the fact that government, through the Ministry of ESC Department of Business Transformation and Reforms, has been able to do a lot of progress in terms of business reforms. Maybe in terms of communication, we might not be aware of all of them, but we just wanted to give a sample here in terms of business registration. Of course, we've seen the process of business registration being automated. Currently, for those of us who opened our enterprises or our businesses prior to maybe 2013, 2012, you realize that that process was manual. You had to get a lawyer, pay some money. And of course, that process was a bit tedious. So currently that has been automated. You can be able to get your PIN, you can be able to get your NSSF, NHIF, all at a go through the BRS portal. Of course, the other reforms are at the port. There are reforms around tax filing. Currently, you can be able to tax file your tax through iTax. Of course, that's part of the broader reforms that we've seen. And we know, of course, more needs to be done, but at least we've seen great progress in that end. So at the beginning of last year, the two partners, the Ministry of EAC as well as the UK Tech Hub, came together to, with a brief of, can we be able to develop something of a toolkit that can allow entrepreneurs to be able to, get the necessary information for the businesses that they operate in. So the first phase that we focused on was at a national level, looking at, registering your business, a business being in certain sectors, and you just need to be able to get your license information at least at a national level. The idea was to develop a very simple toolkit that can be easily accessible, easy to use, that can allow you to be able to understand regulation and, of course, use that process or use the same toolkit to, use it as a platform for giving feedback or as a channel for feedback that maybe government can use to improve the process around regulation. So the principle that we used to develop the first phase as well as the second phase was user-centered design. So the idea is to just put the user at the center of whatever intervention or product that you want to develop. Then based on that, present that information in a manner that they can be able to consume. So we know that we wanted to present regulatory information at a national level to entrepreneurs. So what we did is we aggregated all government ministries and linked all regulatory support and support agencies for each ministry and linked it back to the mother ministry. I can give you an example. If, for example, you want to start a clinic, the obvious starting port of call for you would be maybe go to the Ministry of Health to see if you can be able to see any license that is required for you to start a clinic. But the challenge is you might not find that information because that information is on a different website that focuses on regulation around health. So then it means that if you go to the Ministry of Health, you might not be able to get that information. So what we did, we aggregated that. We developed what we are calling a master map, which of course just focused on ministries or regulatory agencies, regulatory and support agencies that pertain to business. We developed the toolkit, which is web-based. Again, we did quite a bit of validation in terms of just presenting the toolkit to the different stakeholders to see if it makes sense. We eventually, based on the feedback, were able to develop a web portal for the same. And of course, this was launched last year. At the later end of this presentation, I'll be able to show you that. So of course, that toolkit, like I said, we were able to launch it in 2020, and we got a robust, people coming to, for the launch. Of course, we had, quite a good mix of the triple or quadruple helix. The academicians can tell us which is that, but we had, of course, representation from UK aid. We had the CS, of course, the former CS for the ministry. We had the PS. We had a private sector representation, both Kenyan National Chamber of Commerce as well as KEPSA. We had representation from ASEC. I think by then was Anne, and I don't know if Anne Lawi is still there. I think she's still the vice chair, I presume.
Yes.
Yeah. So we, of course, we had representation from the countrywide hubs and a lot of different associations across board. So again, we got quite a bit of good media coverage. We had a Citizen TV 9 p.m. town hall conversation around reforms, and as you can see, Akinyi Odongo was there to represent entrepreneurs. So in terms of the performance of the first toolkit, of course, numbers don't lie. So we currently have around 1.5 million hits to the website. We have an average of 40,000 site visits, 370,000 page visits, And we've seen a lot of ESOs express interest to use this toolkit as part of their entrepreneurship training curriculum around regulation. So of course, you have different modules that you take your entrepreneurs through. Could be business model canvas, could be marketing, could be product development, etc. So we've seen a lot of ESOs writing to us saying, we would want to incorporate this toolkit as part of our training for entrepreneurs. So phase one was quite successful, which of course the natural progression was, and again, based on feedback, is can we be able to develop a county-based toolkit that would allow entrepreneurs to be able to realize the full cost of doing business with the counties and just be able to understand how to do business within the counties. So for the pilot for this phase on the toolkit, the county toolkit, of course, the different partners settled on doing a pilot, and we settled on 10 counties, as you can see: Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Machakos, Uasin Gishu, Garissa, Kakamega, Kajiado, and Laikipia. And of course, we were able to select these 10 counties based on the criteria of population, of course, population within the county, population density, gross county product, which gross country product, as well as contribution of the county to the national GDP, number of SMEs in the county, as well as affirmative action to ensure that we don't only pick counties that are strong economically, but we're able to even pick a marginalized county. So as you can see, we can see a county such as Garissa, which might not perform as high on GDP and and the rest. And just to give you a snapshot in terms of the importance of these 10 counties, we can see that in aggregate, they contribute almost close to 50% of the country's GDP. So there's a lot of economic activities that is happening within these 10 counties. In terms of population, you can see they represent around 40% of the entire MSME population within in the country, and you can see they employ 48.2%, 2.4% of SMEs in Kenya. So they're quite important, and we can see that in terms of economic activities, there's a lot happening within that. So based on again the principle or the school of thought around design thinking, we wanted, and again based on the validation and conversation we had with different stakeholders, we sampled. Of course, we can't talk to 7.4 million SMEs and all the ESOs in the country, as well as academia. So what we did, we just took a sample of different stakeholders and just tried to get some baseline of sorts in terms of needs assessment. So what we the brief that we got was a lot of entrepreneurs wanted to see the full cost of doing business in the counties. They wanted to know all licenses that pertain to their business. So for instance, if you're a butchery, you want to know how many licenses am I supposed to comply with? How much would it cost me? What is the process of compliance, and what kind of documentations are needed for me to be able to comply? So for us to be able to do that, we went through this 5-stage process. What we did is the first process was to do what we're calling a process map. So what a process map does is just look at, from the back end, what is the process that one has to go through to comply with a certain license. So we went, of course, we did in close collaboration with all the 10 counties, and which we are very, very grateful for. We were able to look at county business licenses based on the county finance bills, and we were able to develop the toolkit, as well as we were able to launch. So this gives you a snapshot in terms of what is the output that we wanted to get based on the brief that we got from entrepreneurs. Is you should be able to see an aggregate county license per business. So if, for example, you choose a butchery, or you want to set up an edtech startup, or whatever business that you want to set up, you should be able to query the system. It should be able to give you an aggregate in terms of all licenses that pertain to your business. You should be able to see the total cost of all these licenses. You should be able to see the process that is required for you to be able to comply. And lastly, you should be able to get all the documentations that are needed for you to be able to comply. So that's the front end in terms of what the entrepreneurs is seeking and should be able to get. So from the back end, as you can see, we were able to break down the output that we wanted in terms of what input do we need to, or what documents do we need to examine for us to be able to do that. So in terms of cost of licenses, we relied on the county finance bills. So for those of you who might not be aware, every county passes what is called a county finance bill annually. So this is basically a legal document that is passed in the county assemblies that enumerates all the licenses, both business as well as other forms of revenue that the county is going to levy within the county. So we're able to look at the county finance bills for us to be able to get the cost as well as the licenses in the counties. In terms of process as well as documentations, we worked closely with the different counties through the process map for us to be able to see the process, the process that pertain to each license and the documentations that are needed. So just to give you a teaser in terms of now what was the output from the structure that I've been able to show you, is we realized immediately we went to the counties that the county finance bills are arranged in schedules. So from an entrepreneur perspective, what would happen is, if, for example, you have a butchery, what is the practice currently is you have to go through the entire schedule of the finance bill to just single out the word butchery. So you'll go to the different licenses. You'll go from single business permit, public health, all the licenses that are listed on the schedule, and try to identify where you see the word butchery. Then once you do that, you of course choose the zone. Then once you do that, you can be able to manually calculate how much it would cost you for you to set up a butchery. So the challenge with this is, of course, if we are busy people, a lot of entrepreneurs are quite busy. Just looking for finance bill, again, it's a legal document. Where do you find it? Do you go to the website? If you go to the website, it's not there. Do you go to the county? Do you go to government publishers to get? So getting this information was of course, getting it is a challenge, but also trying to interpret the document becomes a challenge. So that's the first challenge that we got. And based on what we wanted in terms of output, we wanted the entrepreneur to be able to see the full license for their business. So what we did is we rearranged the structure of the finance bill. As you can see now, if you're to compare the two documents, the first one is a schedule. This is now what is there on the toolkit. You can actually just go select, your sector, select your business, and you can see here. If it's a butchery, depending with which zone you are in, you can be able to see that the full cost for me to set up a butchery is 2,100 shillings. And this is just an example. These are not actual figures. So if it's a hospital, you can see for me, if I was in a certain zone, this is what it would cost me. So we've been able to rearrange that, of course, based on the principle of design thinking for the entrepreneur to be able to see all the licenses that they need. Allow me now to show you an example of how it pans out in terms of the toolkit. Let me go now. So this is now the live toolkit. So you can see, of course, it's doing the toolkit sits, the county regulatory toolkit sits within the national toolkit. Once I'm done, I think I can be able to share. So I just went directly to the county toolkit. So number one is you can be able to download a document here. You can be able to download the county regulatory toolkit guide. So in case you don't know how to navigate, or you want to learn how to navigate through the toolkit, you can be able to click on this. You can be able to download a PDF document that can be able to explain to you how the toolkit works in very simple graphics. It's not too much English. It's just graphic. This is how to navigate. So the first thing on the toolkit, number one, is you need to be able to identify the county. And the way counties are structured is they're structured into zones. So different counties, and of course, this part of the recommendations that we gave out of this process is for counties to be able to standardize the language around zones. So currently, what we know is if you go to any county, we have sub-counties, etc. So this is not the same language. So this is demarcation based on different counties, and the language is quite different. So for you to be able to get the exact license, you need to be able to know the county as well as the particular zone. So some counties have zoned their counties into zone A, B, C. Some counties have zoned it into urban, rural, peri-urban etc. Some counties have called it township etc. So there is a lot of there is lack of standardization on that front, and as I said, a part of the recommendations is for us to be able to recommend that counties should be able to standardize. So for instance, in this instance, we have the first tab, which is the county, know your county. Once you know your zone, you can be able to choose your business license. So what you notice here is immediately you click on that, it gives you a bit of explanation as to what this is. So this feature allows you to look at what we are calling static licenses. So within the county, there are licenses that are periodic, your single business permit, public health that are paid either annually, etc. Then we have what we are calling activity-based licenses. So these are licenses that you pay based on the kind of activity that you engaged in. And mostly what we have here under activity-based is CES, liquor license, and advertisement. And by advertisement, I mean advertising with the counties. So maybe you want to, set up a billboard, etc. So those are licenses that are based on activities, and it's not all businesses that engage in that. So for instance, if you're in Kakamega County, you choose Kakamega County. Of course, you can select the 10 counties. What I did is I pre-selected the county so that at least the presentation can be quite a bit fast. You choose your zone as rural, and under each zone they have different towns. So assume that you know that you're in rural, you are in a sector called agricultural sector. You're in the business segment called livestock, and you want to set up a slaughterhouse where you are slaughtering up to 5 animals. So immediately you select all this, you can be able to calculate, and the system now is able to generate for you this. So you can see based on the output that we wanted, you can see that you need 3 licenses. The cost of each license is enumerated there, and you can see the aggregate cost of you setting up a slaughterhouse, slaughtering 5 animals. So it would cost you 9,000 shillings. Over and above that, if you need to see the process of complying with licenses within the counties, what you can do is you can download the specific tool for this county, which enumerates all licenses that are there and the steps as well as the documentations that are needed for you to be able to comply. In case you need to see the investment opportunities within the counties, again, this is just a value like extra information, is different counties have identified different sectors within the counties that they would want affirmative action on, and there are opportunities and support that they give investors in some of these sectors that have been identified. So of course, what we did is we gave you a hyperlink to the particular site for the county so that you can just be able to integrate, to look at that, examine that, and make your investment decision. Once you are satisfied with the cost and everything, and you want to start applying, so what we did is we've been able to link this particular toolkit with the county site in terms of depending with the county. So some counties already have automated processes in terms of applying for license. So for instance, Nairobi, Mombasa, Uasin Gishu, I think those are 3 that I remember. They have already automated the process, so you can just go to the site, you know the cost, you know the process, you know the documentations, you can be able to apply for that. So that's one example in terms of a county, and that's an example of Kakamega County. Let's, for instance, take another example of a different county. So this is a different county. This is Laikipia County. Again, you're in Laikipia, you choose your zone as town. You'll notice, like I explained earlier, the zone for different counties have different languages. We hope that as part of the broader reforms within the county government, that there should be some level of standardization on the same with sector. So what I should also explain is even the thing we're calling sector here is non-existent in the counties currently. What we have in the counties currently is our departments. So for you to comply with, for you to be able to comply, you have to go to county offices and go from one department to the next and complying with the different departments that are there. but the language that we changed that language by using a language that the counties have under under the current county integrated development plan. So this is the strategic plan for the different county governments. So they have been able to standardize some the way they classify different sectors. So it's easier. We thought it would be easier for you to navigate your business based on sector and the businesses that fall within each within each sector. So, for instance, under Laikipia, you go to trade, tourism, enterprise development. You want to set up a Class D hotel, which is 100 rooms and above. So you can see here, it would cost you, if you calculate, it would cost you 395,000 shillings. And, you have to go through this, you have to get this number of licenses. What you'll notice, and I'll give you an example of the next, is you'll notice that this is 385,000. So the secondary objective of developing this toolkit was for an investor or an entrepreneur to be able to compare the cost of compliance from one county to the next. We were not able to automatically do the comparison on the toolkit, again, because of the heterogeneous nature of the data that we had. So because of lack of standardization, we could not be able to match apples for apples, but as much as possible, at least if you are to move from one county to the next, at least you can be able to do some level of comparison in terms of comparing what the cost of doing business from one county to the next. Let me just give you an example, the last example, in terms of setting up a Class D hotel. Sorry, I'll share the wrong one. Class D. So assume the first one that we looked at was Laikipia. This is Uasin Gishu. So again, Uasin Gishu Township. You'll notice that the sector is different here because this is the language that is used in the county integrated development plans. So again, accommodation, high standard, a large hotel. So the other one you notice that was 395,000 shillings. If you were to set up the same hotel in Uasin Gishu, it would cost you 96,000 shillings. So as an investor, you can use this information to be able to compare and say, okay, now, why would I set up in Laikipia, for instance, where I'll be charged 300,000 as vis-a-vis me setting up in Uasin Gishu, where I can be charged 96,000. So this is information that can help you make informed decision in terms of where you'd want to set up. So that's just a simulation of the toolkit. You can be able to navigate yourself. As I said, the toolkit is live. You can be able to navigate and just be able to compare, contrast, and again, you can provide feedback in terms of what you're seeing is working or what is not working. And probably we can be able to, as much as possible, be able to address that. Again, of course, we are curtailed with the available data that we currently have within the counties. So in terms of validation, we went through a two-stage validation process. Of course, we had to do a needs assessment before we developed the toolkit, as well as we were able to, once we did the toolkit, we were able to validate by going back to the same stakeholders and to verify that whatever we developed was the right thing. And for this, in this instance, our outreach partner for this particular project was the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, who was the main outreach partner for this particular project. And we were working very closely with the county chapters, but as well, we were able to have conversation with broader SME associations and ESOs. So in terms of needs assessment, again, we went out, had conversations with the entrepreneurs, and the focus was not to focus on the toolkit, but it was just looking at the toolkit as well as asking broader questions around business climate within the counties. And our areas, of course, was around accessing a business license, information, payment application process, how is it? And just getting a sense of what is the experience of entrepreneurs within the counties. Again, direct information that can allow us to develop the toolkit, but also information that can allow counties to be able to get feedback and be able to improve their processes. So in terms of samples, of course, as Kenyans, we like complaining. So we got a barrage of information. again, we just tried to aggregate and decipher that in a manner that can be used for policy work. Again, the issue of availability of the finance bill and information around licenses was not available. Some counties have websites, some counties don't have websites. And even if you have a website, it's not easy to navigate to be able to get the license information. Again, even if you're to get the license information, the finance bill is a legal document. It's very difficult for your average person who doesn't understand, who doesn't like big documents to be able to go through. Again, we went through, of course, having done the needs assessment, we developed the toolkit, and of course, we are having back and forth with the different stakeholders that we identified. Again, with the main partner being KNCCI, we were able to have conversations with at least 60 different organizations, academia, ESOs, associations, etc., etc. And as we were developing the toolkit, of course, we got recommendations that pertained to what we are calling operational areas around counties, as well as general business climate reforms. And again, recommendation was, again, can counties maybe have simplified versions of the finance bills? So what we have as a toolkit is we were able to really unpack the finance bill because, of course, we had the time, we experienced in this, and it was easier for us. For an entrepreneur, that might not be the case. It might be very difficult for them to be able to go through the different finance bills and identify the licenses that pertain to them. Again, can the finance bill be arranged in a different format other than having them in schedules? Can they be put in themes? I just need to go to agriculture sector, look at businesses that are there, and get an aggregate of what it would cost for me to comply with the county. So in terms of broader climate reform challenges or proposals, again, I'm sure even some of you might or can concur with some of the recommendations that we got. Can we be able to get a unified license per county? So instead of applying using the same PIN or same documents moving from one department to the next, can I be able to submit one document in an automated process? And can I be able to get a unified license, whether a combination of single business permit, public health, whatever licenses that are needed, but can I be able to get it as a unified license? Can the processes be automated? As I mentioned, some counties have been able to automate their processes, some have not. Can we be able to see some level of automation, or not some level, just a complete automation of processes as well as payments, so that we reduce human interaction? Of course, this can also deal with the issue around corruption. Can we be able to have a license based on time instead of calendar? So by that means is if I pay my license in March, that license should run up to next year March, as opposed to it running within a calendar year of March to December, and you have to pay again next year. Can we have a predictable tax policy within the county? So as I mentioned, each year the finance bill changes. So it has to be passed through the county assembly. So for instance, this year, the single business permit for my business was 100 shillings. Depending on discussions within the counties, you go next year, it's 115 shillings. So it's very difficult for you to plan. So can counties be able to have some form of tax policy? And of course, lastly, the issue around cess. So cess is a very major challenge within Kenya. So and this continues to be an issue that has been raised. For instance, if you need to transport your product from Mombasa to Nairobi, you have to pay cess at every border point of the counties you pass through. So for instance, if I'm moving potatoes, I have to pay cess in Mombasa, I have to pay cess in Makueni, I have to pay cess in Machakos, and I have to pay cess in Nairobi. And I'm paying cess in all these counties with the formulas changing from one county to the next. So for instance, in one county, it could be charged per ton, another county could be charged per trip, another county, the formula becomes very different. So this, of course, makes it very difficult for for businesses to be competitive, because if you are transporting potatoes worth 30,000, transport is 20,000. By the time you're transporting it to Nairobi, the cost of transporting has surpassed the cost of production plus even the goods. So it doesn't make sense, and it makes us very, very uncompetitive. So those are a sample in terms of some of the recommendations that we were able to receive. Like I said, the site is live currently. You can be able to go navigate through the toolkit, see if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, what can we be able to do to improve the toolkit. So thank you very much. I know I've taken more than the 30 minutes that I was allocated, but I hope that that has been useful. You're on mute, Mercy.
Thank you, Victor. No, I think it was definitely sufficient, and definitely there's good remarks on the chat. Maybe I wanted to ask if you can post the link on the chat as well, because I know there were, I think, around 2 other links that I think we may have that might not be updated.
So, yeah, so now what we did is initially the domain was doing businessregulatoryguide.co.ke, but we did that because the ministry had not yet secured its own domain. So we've been able to transfer the domain to, I've shared it on chat, doingbusinesskenya.go.ke. So currently the site has been transferred to government, and of course you can be able to access it through that. Maybe I could just take a minute just to take you through the national toolkit, just if time allows.
I think you can.
Yeah. So let me just share the national toolkit just for our own consumption. So this is the county toolkit sits here under doing business in Kenya. So it's part of the broader toolkit. Again, the broader toolkit or the national toolkit is what we launched last year. So based again on user-centered design. So what we did is we aggregated the information across government into 4 stages: plan your business, launch your business, manage your business, and scale your business. So these are basically business milestones that any business would go through, whether it's a startup, SME, it doesn't really matter. So what we did under plan, for instance, you can be able to look at all government support agencies that can help you as you're planning your business. So are there opportunities around capacity building? Are there finance options that government is giving? Is there market intelligence information that you can be able to get? And as, for example, if you click on market information, what we did is we've been able to give you all agencies that provide market intelligence information. Mostly is Keproba. Keproba has been able to aggregate data on export market within EAC, within COMESA, under the CFTA, as well as global markets. InfoTrade Kenya, again, has a lot of data that you can use to be able to make a better decision in terms of your market share, etc. So as you can see, as you go from one tab to the next, it gives you a link towards to support agencies that can be able to support you. Again, the content is quite simple. It's very simple. We added some video of sorts, some cartoons that, maybe a minute or so that you can be able to listen in, and gives you a snapshot of what that stage is looking at, what agencies that you can be able to get support in. So this is the national toolkit. So of course you can be able to do a look at licenses at a national level. And once you get compliance at a national level in terms of registering your business and looking at sector-specific licenses, then you can now go to the county toolkit. Then probably you can again be able to get the full cost of dealing with the counties. So it's almost like an entire spectrum of sorts that once you assume that you're not from Kenya, you can be able to get all your cost, all information that pertain to regulation within the county. So we hope that, of course, this particular toolkit is evolving. We hope that we can go to our next phase and put in all the 37 counties. So we have a total of 47 counties. With that, then it means that we can be able to see. It's very easy for you to get information, even though the practice might be difficult. At least this toolkit is a bridge towards reforms in terms of giving a prototype or an MVP of sorts that can allow and give government an opportunity to see that it actually can be done. Thank you, Mercy.
No, thanks, Victor. And I know time is coming up. We have a question here from Bernard. He's asking, does the regulatory toolkit provide any support for tech-based businesses and affiliated stakeholders, such as VCs and angel investors?
Yeah, so the toolkit is specific on regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And what the toolkit mirrors, whenever you're automating any system, it is a reflection of what is actually on the ground. So what we try to do is just to simplify the information that is already currently there. So if you look at a startup or an SME, from a regulatory point of view, there's nothing that is very different from one to the next. So if you are registering your business, whether you are an SME or startup, it doesn't matter. You have to go through BRS. You need to get your NSSF. You need to get your PIN. You need to get your NHIF, etc. If, for example, you need to file your returns, it doesn't matter whether you are a tech startup or not. You need to pay as you earn because you're paying salaries. You need to pay VAT. You need to pay corporate tax. So it's at that level that we are looking at. Because, of course, if you look at startups, it's quite unique. And the challenge, I think, would be to get more support agencies within government that can be able to support startups. So currently we have MSIA, the Micro Small Enterprise Authority, that is able to offer support, specific support to small businesses. So what we currently maybe don't have and is not reflected in government is support for startups in terms of support agencies, etc. So we hope that startup bill can be able to address that.
And that's one of the things that also ASIC is championing for, yeah. Wonderful. So I think, yeah, great comments coming in through the chat, that it's a very good presentation, that also it's a needed toolkit. And of course, I think we'll have to plan another session where we can actually increase the access to information to all SMEs and startups. Is there anyone with a burning question? You can feel free to unmute and quickly ask. Going once, going twice. Oh, Rachel, yes.
Yeah, Mercy, possibly, I would ask, I'm trying to navigate and calculate business license fees from this Doing Business Kenya. I don't seem to see that. And so I'm just wondering how my small businesses can utilize this. Or maybe, Victor, I can pick the discussion after this.
So unless you, like I said, I think, so before you choose a license, you need to know which county you operate in, number one. You need to know which zone or the town that the business operates in. This two information is very critical for you to be able to choose your license. That's number one. Once you choose your county, you choose your maybe we can just go to the demonstration again. For our own, maybe for the benefit of the rest. So let's say, for example, I go to Doing Business in the counties. So you need to, number one is to be able to know which zone. For example, let me take an example of Machakos. Under Machakos.
Can we do Nairobi? Can we do Nairobi?
Okay. So and Nairobi has not zoned its businesses. So it doesn't for Nairobi, it's not as zoned. So let's assume that you want a license. Let's choose Nairobi. Nairobi doesn't have zones, so that's fine. You choose your sector. So depending which sector are we looking at in terms of your business?
Okay, take a startup, a tech startup.
So
EdTech.
So remember, there's nothing called EdTech from a government point of view. Let's assume that it's under trade. Yeah. So again, like I said, I think Bernard had raised this. Government can't be that specific in terms of business. They would just say you are trading. Let's assume you are trading. Under trading, what is reflected in the county finance bill are these business segments. So, and again, of course, this is the challenge that we pose to government in terms of can it resonate more, or can it be changed in a manner that entrepreneurs can be able to understand. So currently what happens is if you're in tech or your startup, you'd have to go under general trade. Yeah, so like I said, we are limited based on the language that the county has adopted. So remember, the finance bill is a legal document. There's no way I can be able to change this language. So if, for example, I wanted to register a tech startup, I would still go under trade. And under trade, I don't know, it's under trade, what is currently listed, and what they have done is they have not given a list of the different businesses. They have given a block sentence called distributor, wholesaler, supermarket, showroom, and services. Again, the language that we currently have is, again, limited on what is there in the finance bill. So currently what we have under Nairobi County is under trade is a supermarket, hyper supermarket, mega supermarket, large, medium trader, small trader, kiosk, other general merchant shops and retail. So this is currently what is there within the county and the Nairobi County. So again, you will be forced to choose what is there. It might not be specific to you, but at least it gives you a sense of, and this is how they're basically calculating, they're doing the calculation currently. Of course, you're not a kiosk, but for the purposes of argument, I would say, let's assume that we're talking that you had a kiosk, a light kiosk with a temporary construction, you can be able to calculate. So like I said, I think even that's currently the practice in government currently, at least within the counties, is the language that is there is a bit generic. It's not specific, it's not, this is what makes it very difficult for you to be able to comply. Because sometimes, you're looking at EdTech, you're looking at, I have a startup that is doing whatever, you are doing some mechanical engineering or whatever. That language is not there. And again, of course, this is limited because what is EdTech? EdTech is not something that is even defined in law. If you say you are an incubator is not something that is defined in law that can find its way in a legal document. And I think some of the issues or the challenges that we can be able to solve maybe is, again, if having a specific regulation around startups, then that can give us the basis or the leverage to be able to say, can we have this unique language within the counties, and can we be able to get special licenses or whatever for this specific sector? But currently, the language that we have currently in Kenya is SMEs. And of course, as you can see, the classification is highly gravitates towards SMEs.
I hope that somehow helps, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks. That was brilliant.
Great. I think we can take one more from Hilton.
Hello, everyone. I think it was Albert Einstein that said, when you can't explain things simply, then it's very difficult. So I want to say to Kenya and Victor and the team, this is awesome. I haven't seen this anywhere on the African continent. I'm Hilton. I'm from Growthville in South Africa, and we work directly with the South African government and many other governments across the continent and the world. This is freaking amazing, and it should be open sourced to all government agencies throughout Africa. I just wanted to say well done on this, and this is such a great presentation. Thank you.
Sorry, I think I might have dropped off, but yes. Yeah, thank you so much, Hilton. And I think we also have to manage expectations that it is a good start and we'll keep improving. And that's why it's important to have this validation workshops and even feedback sessions. So if you do go through the toolkit and you find any good feedback or questions, then definitely please share with us at info@asec.ke. I think Mudhoni can also put that on the chat. But yes, thank you so much, everyone, for being here in this part of the session. In case there's another demand, we can definitely plan for another one. I think, Victor, maybe perhaps end of March or early April, just to be able to ensure that we are continuously also using this toolkit that also the government really has developed and is trying to really simplify when it matters comes to regulation and also compliance. So without further ado, I'd like to say thank you so much, Victor, for your time and cooperation, and to every one of you who have spent your lunch with us. We thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next session. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.